The Velmuran scout ship Ashkar's Talon hung dead in orbit, its hull glowing cherry red from re-entry heat it should never have survived. Commander Das Irek pressed his four-fingered hand against the cracked viewport and watched the blue-green planet below swallow his last two fighters whole. Not shot down, not intercepted, swallowed. One moment his wingmen were screaming coordinates through the comm. The next, static. Then silence. Then something worse than silence. A single human voice, calm as still water, cutting through every frequency his ship monitored at once. "You were warned," the voice said. "The border was marked, you crossed it anyway." Doss's claws dug into the console. In 11 years of Frontier Command, no species had ever hacked a Velmuran encrypted channel mid-battle. The humans weren't supposed to have technology like this. The humans weren't supposed to have anything like this. Command briefings called Earth a backwater, 3 centuries behind the Coalition, worth invading only for its rare mineral belt. That assessment was about to get his entire crew killed. "Identify yourself," Doss transmitted, hating the tremor in his own voice. A pause. Then, "Ask your database what happened the last time someone called this border a suggestion." The console lit up with a file. Doss hadn't requested, hadn't authorized, shouldn't have been accessible. Casualty reports. Coalition warships, gone, not retreated. Gone, in the way a candle is gone after someone closes their hand around the flame. Das Irek, decorated commander of the Velmuran Frontier Fleet, felt something he hadn't felt since his first combat drop as a cadet, fear. But none of this had begun with fear. It had begun 3 weeks earlier, with a treaty nobody bothered to read. The Sol exclusion line wasn't Earth's idea. It was the Coalition's own law, drafted 200 years earlier when a human diplomat named Eris Voss had stood before the full Coalition assembly, outnumbered 11,000 to 1, and made a request so strange the chamber had gone silent. "Leave us alone. We are not ready to be found. Mark the border. Respect it, and we will never trouble you." The assembly had laughed. Then, out of curiosity more than courtesy, they had granted it. A quarantine zone, 40 light-years wide, with Earth locked at its center. No Coalition ship permitted inside without invitation. A minor historical footnote, filed away and forgotten by everyone except the archivists and the old warlord caste families, who still whispered about the one delegation that vanished, after ignoring the line in its first decade. Das Irek had never read the footnote. His superior, Fleet Marshal Ketrach Vun, hadn't either. All Ketrach knew was that Velmura scanskinners had detected a mineral signature inside the exclusion zone worth more than 3 border systems combined, and that no species foolish enough to still be pre-warp after 2 centuries could possibly stop him from taking it. He was wrong on both counts. 2 ships is a scouting formation, not an invasion. Ketrach had told Doss, dismissing his objections with a flick of a clawed hand. "If the humans object, we withdraw and file a diplomatic complaint. Low risk." Doss had wanted to argue. He hadn't. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was crossing the line at all. The truth stunned Doss before he even reached the surface. Earth's orbital defense grid didn't fire a single missile. No warships rose to meet the Velmuran scouts. For 6 full minutes, nothing happened at all, and that silence unsettled Doss more than any barrage could have. Then his sensors screamed. Not from weapons fire, from displacement. His fighter wings' shields registered a field effect no Coalition technology had ever catalogued. Space itself folding, gently, precisely, around his 2 escort craft and setting them down, intact, unharmed, engines dead, inside a valley 3,000 kilometers from any human city. No violence, no warning shots, just a demonstration, delivered with the casual precision of someone swatting insects off a table without breaking stride. Doss's pilots didn't panic. They were Velmuran, warrior caste, bred for centuries to face death without flinching. But when Corporal Ashi Mera radioed in from the valley floor, her voice cracked in a way Doss had never heard from her before. "Commander, there are footprints in the dirt around our ship. Bare footprints, human-sized. But the depth reading says whoever made them weighs over 400 kilograms." Everything changed in the next few seconds. A shape stepped out of the tree line. Just one, unarmored. Unarmed as far as Ashi's sensors could tell. A human man, dressed in simple gray fatigues, walking toward the downed fighter with no urgency at all, like a man approaching a broken-down car on a quiet road. He stopped 10 meters away and spoke, and the translation matrix caught every word. "You're not the first to land here uninvited," he said. "You'll probably be the last for a while, though. Word tends to spread." Ashi's hand hovered over her sidearm. The man didn't even glance at it. "My name is Elias Cho," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to send you home, so you can tell your commanders something they've apparently forgotten how to hear. Nobody in the Velmuran fleet knew what Elias Cho actually was. That was by design. 200 years earlier, when the Sol exclusion line was drawn, humanity had made a choice that no other coalition species would have made in their position. Instead of racing to build fleets and armor and weapons to match a galaxy of predators, they had turned inward and asked a harder question. What if strength wasn't the only thing worth building? What followed wasn't a story of conquest. It was 2 centuries of quiet, disciplined work. Scientists and soldiers and ordinary people, generation after generation, refining something the rest of the galaxy hadn't thought to refine. The ability to reach into the fabric of space itself and bend it, gently, the way a careful hand bends a sapling instead of snapping it. Not gods, not myths, just people who had decided that patience, precision, and restraint were forms of strength too, and had spent 200 years proving it. Elias wasn't the strongest human alive. He wasn't even close. He was, by his own admission, a mid-level border warden, the human equivalent of a customs officer with unusually good tools. That was the detail that would break Fleet Marshal Ketrak Vun's confidence more than anything else. Later, when the truth finally reached him, Earth hadn't sent its best, it had sent someone ordinary. And ordinary had been more than enough. The border isn't a threat, Elias told the shaking Velmuran pilots as their fighter systems slowly, gently, came back online under him. It's a mercy. We know what we could become if we let people like your fleet marshal provoke us into a real war. We'd rather not find out, so we ask nicely, every single time. And if asking nicely doesn't work? He looked up, toward the sky, toward the second fighter, still burning through the upper atmosphere under DOS Irek's frozen command. We stop asking. Commander DOS Irek made a decision that would define the rest of his career and possibly save his crew's lives. He surrendered his weapons systems before the humans below had to make him. It didn't save the mission. It saved his people. Fleet Marshal Ketrak Vun didn't believe the report when it reached him 3 days later. He didn't believe the sensor logs. He didn't believe the testimony of 2 experienced pilots who both, independently, described the same unarmed man walking through weapons fire that should have vaporized him and simply not being hit. Not because he dodged, because the fire had bent around him, like water around a stone. The moment it got too close, the council had made a terrible mistake, and it took them a war council meeting to admit it. Ketrak assembled the Frontier War Council, demanding retaliation, demanding an invasion fleet worthy of erasing the insult. He got exactly one response, forwarded through every coalition channel simultaneously, time-stamped precisely 1 hour after his own private planning session had ended, a session he was certain no outside species could have monitored. It was Elias Cho's voice again, calm, unhurried, almost kind. We heard your council meeting, Fleet Marshal. All of it. We're not telling you that to threaten you. We're telling you because you need to understand something about the border you keep testing. It isn't a wall. It's a favor. And favors can be withdrawn. The invasion fleet never launched. Ketrak Vun was quietly relieved of command within the month. His career ended not by defeat in battle, but by the far more humiliating truth that there had been no battle to lose. Only a demonstration, offered once, gently, by a species that could have ended his career a great deal more permanently. DOS Irek was reassigned to a diplomatic liaison post, the only Velmuran officer in the fleet who had actually stood on human soil and lived to describe it honestly. He spent the rest of his service advising against every proposal to test the Sol exclusion line, and he was believed, because he had earned the right to be. Word did spread, exactly as Elias had promised, not the way coalition warlords wanted it to, not as a story of human weakness ripe for conquest, but as something closer to a quiet warning passed between star systems. There is a small blue planet at the center of a border no one crosses twice, and the people there do not want war, which is the only reason there hasn't been one. Elias Cho went back to his post at the edge of human space, watching the dark for the next uninvited ship, patient as he'd always been, unremarkable as he'd always been, ready, if it ever truly came to it, to prove one more time that humanity's forbidden border wasn't drawn out of fear, it was drawn out of mercy. And mercy, everyone eventually learned, was simply the softer face of a strength no one had thought to measure until it was already standing in front of them, calm, unarmed, and utterly unafraid.